For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Shannon Ryhove. Researcher and analyst Professor Raymond Suttner joins me to discuss whether the Ministry of Women is an obstacle in the struggle against patriarchy. Welcome.
Thank you.
When you criticised the Women's Ministry's plan for 16 days of no violence against women and children, what were your expectations?
Yeah, I don't really have expectations, because if they say that something has been moved to the presidency, if you were talking about another country, you would think this is really important, that it's gone to the presidency. But when something goes to the presidency here, you can't, it makes you think that nothing will happen. It's like when the president says there'll be zero tolerance for corruption now, and that he will lead a campaign against corruption. You can't take it seriously.
No.
Now, it's the same with patriarchy and gender equality. It's hardly the best place for it to be located with a major patriarch like the president. But having said that, it's important that we must not just be cynical. It's important for us as the public to engage with what is said and show what is wrong with these ideas. Because if we want to build a strong constituency behind gender equality, it's important that we get a common understanding of what it is that is necessary to combat violence against women and children. So, much as we may want to be sarcastic or cynical, it's very important that we should analyze what they said. For example, the idea of wanting to get men to buy into a campaign is a very good idea. But the way they did it is problematic, because they treated men as protectors, which is something which is complex in my view, but and infantilized women, but also the suggestions being made at this meeting is that questions regarding abuse of women and children should really be dealt with in the home and not be treated as matters which the criminal law should be dealing with. They should cut off funds for homes for battered women and things like this. Should all really be treated as matters in the home. Now, the problem with that, amongst others, there's a lot of problems, because you're deciding that something is not, you're decriminalizing rape and abuse of women and children, sexual abuse and so forth. But what is also happening is that the person who's the perpetrator may well be a relative, may well be in the home. And what you're encouraging is an idea that you wall off what happens in the home. So that's the other side to it. Because when things happen between, I know of cases where uncles have abused children and things like that, and in a lot of cases families don't want to believe the children, or they want to cover it up because it is so shameful for it to happen. And the person who gets sacrificed is the child. So there's a lot of problems with that, but it's important that we must raise the debate about it so that there's a constituency which can be shown to be more powerful than the chief who was quoted there and the princess who was quoted there.
Now, in your article, are you not hedging your bets in the way you dispute that depicting men as protectors is always a negative phenomenon?
Yeah, now in the literature on patriarchy, one of the characteristics of patriarchy is to treat women as decorative and to see men as their protectors. The man defends the home from attack and things like this. And the woman is like in the shadows. But I think we need to understand that patriarchy is not one thing. And certainly in South Africa's history, one of the reasons why the language of African nationalism often refers to the emasculation of men and the need to recover their virility is that they feel that under apartheid they were denied their power to defend their homes against attack from the apartheid regime. And I know of many, many cases of this where some young girls and women felt upset for their fathers who felt powerless in defending them. And in the case of Mandela, we see that he refers to himself as the head of the household, not being there to protect them. Now, we may not like the phrase head of the household, but it was a fact that he did leave his wife and children in situations where they were subjected to a lot of harassment and attacks.
You also raised the question of diversity and human rights differently from the report of the feminists who attended the meeting with the ministry. What precisely is your disagreement?
Yeah, I'm not saying they are wrong to say that gender rights or women's rights are human rights, but there is a trend to, by calling it a human right, in calling it a human right, you need also to specify there's a very specific human right which stands against patriarchy. Patriarchy which oppresses women, but patriarchy which also polices heterosexuality, which determines that the only natural form of sexual relations are that between a man and a woman. So even it polices not only people who are gays, lesbians, and other LGBTI people, but it polices me. If I have an idea in my head that I may want to be bisexual or gay, I hesitate to do anything about it because I might get a club. So we need to understand, and that's another thing that I don't like, is when people refer to LGBTI sexualities as minority or dissident sexualities. How do we know? If I'm scared to say that I'm gay, if I'm gay, how do we know how many others are? So we can't really say that heterosexuality is actually the majority sexuality. It just happens that it's enforced and it's policed. So that's why I feel it's not sufficient to say it's a human right. We must specify the particular type of human right it is, and we must out patriarchy.
Thank you so much. That was Professor Raymond Suttner speaking to Creamer Media's Polity about the challenges facing the Department of Women within the Presidency.